get on with my my question I want to ask you guys.
Yeah.
So there was this one time I was in my history class, and we were talking about religion, of all things. And I mean, the teacher brought the subject up. It's how it relates to the early 1800s. And I said that religion in today's society is dying, and you could look. And I gave evidence from Pew Research, and I gave all these different sources, and then eventually, one person in the class was offended by the fact that I brought up these sources, and what she said is this, is like, how do you know there might not be a second Great Awakening or 5 Great Awakenings? And so I just want to ask you guys, is another Great Awakening possible in today's time? I mean, I don't believe it is, but is it possible? And could there be a chance that it could happen, like in our lifetimes?
Do you mean in the United States?
Yeah, in the United States, preferably.
Yes, I believe that's possible. The amount of superstition and the utter opposition from influential people to public education, and the rising popularity in things like horoscopes and alternative medicines that we've already had so much trouble fighting woo, and unrefined drugs sold as food or regulated as food on the shelves, which is any herbal remedy that you can buy from CVS effectively, lead me to believe that, people can decide to a bunch of things that are wrong for bad reasons relatively quickly, and that the answer is to address the importance of skepticism and spread the word that these are bad ways of coming to conclusions. That and Islam and extremism is rising in the West, even as it's declining in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Not to put a damper on this call, but doom is possible, and it could be right around the corner waiting for you.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
The end is nigh, or it's not. But your question was, is it possible, rather than is it going to happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it would be impossible in today's time for some reason. It's because we got a lot new. Most people.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
What is it that you're? I might have gotten a little lost, and I apologize. What is it you're saying that would be impossible in current day and time?
A second Great Awakening. I would say that the recipe for the Great Awakening, and the reason that it wasn't prevented by people that were adopting skepticism at the time, is that they neglected what I think was, if not their obligation, then something that they very much would have been very, very helpful for them to have done in the 1800s, which was address a whole host of terrible superstitious ideas. There was this notion of it'll go away on its own, and we don't need to oppose it, and
that was a mistake.
Let the little people, because I look down on them, have their religion. And I think that
I think that was a mistake, and that's how we ended up with, not only Mormonism becoming more prominent and Scientology becoming more prominent, but as Jamie was talking about the various woo claims and things like that, I'm going to do a video fairly soon on how astrology is BS, and in particular, how and why we can say that in the same way we can say that with acupuncture and other things that are testable, where there's actually evidence against this proposition. And when it comes to astrology, it's kind of Barnum statements, which takes me back to the last caller, because when I'm on stage, I make predictions, and they will, if I do my job right, come true. But if I were to begin a spot in the show by saying, you're really going to love this, that's not a prediction. That's marketing. And so when I tell you, hey, if you live a Christ-like life, you're going to have peace and joy. Yeah. That's not a prediction, that's marketing, and it's self-fulfilling, because much like the placebo effect, if you think that you're living this way, you're going to do that. And that's why I agree with you, Neil, that, with the internet and easy access to information, I think it's less and less likely that we're going to see another great grand world religion that is fact that has within it claims that are really problematic. I think what we're going to see are the loosey-goosey, I'm spiritual but not religious, and I have this notion of God that I've distilled down, and it might be based a little on the Bible or the Book of Mormon or something, but it's not really. I don't take it literally. It's just a feeling that I have, and I recognize that there's an aspect under which those types of belief can become more benign, but they can also make things worse. Yeah. Because if they prevent you, what they get to is something that I think we're already seeing with the woo extended out, which is fake news. If there is no truth, if there is no right answers, then everything becomes fuzzy opinion. And no matter whether you're talking about religion or politics or even science, it all becomes, well, that's just what they say. This is what they don't want you to know. Yeah. And I really hope that somebody much smarter than me comes up with a really good term for and they probably already have, for this
anything goes attitude.
Yeah, it's like, there may be some truth, but we can't really know it, and so I'm going to be all non-committal. And what they think of as skepticism, which is really cynicism, which is really apathy in many cases, that I'm terrified of that because, and not that Idiocracy will ever be viewed as a documentary, but there's the possibility that things not. I mean, obviously that was over the top and ridiculous, but we're seeing a lot of that, and it's a worthwhile point to make.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I would say is also the tail end of the 1800s led into the early 1900s. And that doesn't count as a prediction either, because that's how numbers work. But the beginning of the 1900s also saw the release of Birth of a Nation, which is a bunch of bullshit that sowed the seeds for a lot of the terrible and racist ideas that we're dealing with now. And so when you get to a place where, it's okay for people to believe bad things because I can look down on them, then you've sowed fertile soil for seeds of doom and death, effectively, to entirely just destroy a nation. When that nation has elements of democracy and people vote, the importance of people having a value of what is real and what is true, and not being, I'll dismiss anything I don't like as fake news. It's difficult to predict exactly when and how that will bite you in the ass. But if it's not addressed, it's kind of only a matter of time.
It reminds me of something that came up in the first call that I didn't address, which is he has this friend who has these supernatural beliefs or superstitious beliefs, but they're not harmful. And you addressed it a little bit, and I would agree. How do you know it's not harmful? Because every belief that you hold is arrived at through some process in your mind. Mm-hmm. And so I've got lucky socks. And you might think, that's a really benign belief that you've got lucky socks. What's it really hurting? Okay, one of these days you probably figure out maybe you don't really have the lucky socks. But there's something in your brain that led you to conclude you had lucky socks. What if that same heuristic is used to address other claims about whether or not you should invest your money or give your money to the Nigerians who need,
They just need a little bit of money now, a little bit, so and then you'll get more rich later. Yeah.
What if your lucky socks turn into a lucky necklace that is going to cure your cancer, so that you don't actually have to go get treatment? It may seem ridiculous, but as long as there's something in your brain that can lead you to false conclusions, that's something that needs to be addressed. And it will always be there. None of us are ever likely to be perfect thinkers. We're all going to get something wrong all the time. But the people who don't actually focus and work on trying to be wrong less often, they're the ones that are at risk. And that's the category of people I'm talking about who are like, hey, I've got lucky socks, it's not hurting anybody. Or, hey, this has happened and we really don't know what the truth is. Yeah. Or, there's a problem with carbon dating and therefore I'll just chuck out all of radiometric dating or chuck out all of science or, what could it hurt to not vaccinate my kid? Maybe, because I don't know. Maybe the vaccines cause autism. Maybe they don't. I just don't know. But it seems natural.
Oh, my God.
Natural to not do that. Yeah.
But now I'm not living in peace and happiness.
Yeah.
The kingdom of reality is full of dung.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is...
The kingdom of reality doesn't give a damn about us.
Yeah. Why call it a kingdom? But what I will say, Neil, is if your question is, do I think it's likely, or even like a sort of realistic thought to think that, a religious revival like the one that happened in the late 1800s, where everyone began to believe, even if you don't get specifically into like, a fire and brimstone God is likely in the United States, I would say no. I find it entirely unlikely. The idea that the unreliable thinking that leads to those things could be prominent and could be just sort of accepted. I think we're seeing a little bit of that now, and I don't really know what the result of increased energy and movement in the atheist and skeptical movements will be. I certainly have hopes and predictions that I'm going to try and make come true about what that effect will be, namely that people will understand that that's a bad way to come to conclusions and that this is a serious societal ill that we should address. But if it helps reassure you at all, I think if we do what we should do to address that, then it will be addressed, right? The possibility of people understanding that whether or not you believe that a car can hit you and kill you or not doesn't mean that you should let someone stand in front of a bus to prove it.
And we might have gone far afield of your question.
Yeah, we've gone way,
But we're also out of time.
We're out of time. Matt's doing this. We'll take a couple of I'll take a couple of after show calls. But before I do that, all right. So I've just been told through my psychic powers that we won't be taking after show calls. And so Benny and Donald, thank you for waiting, but don't go yet. You should call in to the Atheist Experience, and you should call back next week, because while Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience are really good friends as far as shows go, we also want to win. So what I will say, Neil, is hopefully we've addressed your call, and hopefully when I went far-flung out in the middle of nowhere, it wasn't too distracting, but I'm glad you called in.
Oh, thanks. Nice.
And I'm sure that the ACA Discord would love to jump in all over this, and they are much better at staying on topic than I am.
Or
I
me.
think. Yeah.
And if you want to win, you have to stop having me on.